Well, hello there, everyone. Alexis Brooks here from Higher Journeys, back with another episode of Conscious Commentary. How are y'all doing today? I hope you all are doing well, wherever you may be on this little blue planet. Wherever you may be on this little blue planet. Speaking of little blue planet, wherever you may be, I hope that you have had a chance by now to listen to an absolutely exquisite discussion that I had with my friend and colleague Miguel Mendonsa just this past Wednesday, where we talked about ET human hybrids and making the assumption that they do exist, how they live, what is their life philosophy, what is reality. I mean, we just went down so many rabbit holes, philosophically speaking, especially, but in so far as how the hybrids see their own lives in this larger context. That's what we were talking about. This is based on the book that he wrote, Meet the Hybrids, of which I had the pleasure of narrating the audiobook for. So it was a great discussion. But listen, here's where I want to go with this conscious commentary. It is related to the discussion that Miguel and I had, but it wasn't until the very end of the discussion that inspired this episode that you're about to hear. And it has to do with activating your right brain. Activating your right brain. How do you do that? You know, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. How we utilize two hemispheres of the brain, which are called, by the way, bicarnal. Bicarnal is, or I'm sorry, let me take that back. I'm not saying that right. The brain is a bicameral entity, having two sides, two chambers, much like two bodies of government, legislative bodies, two sides. But we all know the bottom line is one side is used far more than the other, that being the left, the more practical, logical, egoistic, etc. The analyst. It's needed, of course. It's how we think, move, and have our being most of the time. But then there's this other side that we call the right brain, the right hemisphere of the brain. And it's interesting that I recently learned through another colleague that he had read somewhere that we, on average, only use our right brain, that more intuitive, creative, idealistic side, only about 5% of the time. I find that quite interesting. Why is that? But this show isn't about that. This show is going to be about assuming that obviously as I said recently to someone, there's an equilibrium problem here. We've got to try to figure out a way to bring the two hemispheres in balance. And as someone else said to me, you wouldn't have two hemispheres of the brain unless they were both supposed to be used in tandem, working together, shaking hands with one another. But in keeping in mind that the right brain is often associated with the more, again, creative, but intuitive side, I really feel that the right brain, the right hemisphere of the brain, is connected at some level to our more multidimensional aspect, and thus to the field, what we loosely refer to as the field of everything, of all knowledge, of all inspiration. It's also the more neutral. I have to say this, another colleague of mine, Penny Pierce, who, by the way, we've got to get Penny back on the show, who is an incredible researcher and expert in intuitive development. And I'll never forget when she said to me once, Alexis, the left brain is, when the left brain is overanalyzing, constantly overanalyzing, the right brain is just going, that's interesting. I love the way she did. I've got to dig up that episode and find out what context we were talking about that. But nonetheless, the point she was making is that the left brain, yes, is just hell-bent on overanalyzing and thinking too much. And, it's also where the survival lives, I suppose, the survival aspect, part of it at least, where the right brain is more neutral. That's interesting. More flexible, I would dare say. And I do feel if we are, as multidimensional beings and as non-local entities, if we're connected to something, what I call the repository of all, if that exists and we're connected to it, there's got to be a conduit that gets us from here to there, so to speak, and it could very well be the right brain. So what I want to talk about and what I want to get to today is how we can begin to tap the right brain more. How things that we may be able to do to bring the right brain more into balance with the left. It's not just about switching one for the other. It's about wholeness. It's about taking two sides and bringing them together. When you think of our planet even, it is divided into hemispheres. Most common of these such divisions are, as they call the latitudinal and longitudinal markers of the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. And yet the planet still acts as a whole, does it not? And so should we. But it's so interesting that there seems to be such an imbalance in the usage of the hemispheres of our brain that it's almost as if it creates polarity in ourselves, which may lead to why within ourselves there too often are times of indecision and conflict, not to mention conflict with others. It's time to bring ourselves into more of a synthesized state of using both sides. So I want to make that point, but what I really want to do is look at how we may be able to activate more of the right brain by bringing the two hemispheres together so we can tap more of that field, more intuitive information, psychic information if you call it that, want to call it that, more of a creative stream. I think there are ways of doing that. Now, here's where I want to get with this. Miguel, my conversation with Miguel Mendonsa in our last show. This has nothing to do with hybrids, but it does have to do with tapping the field in which, I don't know, non-human intelligence resides, maybe. That which is outside of the 3D. Let me just set this up for you, because I think what I'm about to explain in the clip will really kind of illustrate where I want to go. Miguel has worked on several great book projects, and the one that he most recently has worked on and has just been released, and I'm going to show you an image right here, is a book called E.T. as Artist, and it's by a woman named Faye Vale. This is a 74-year-old woman from the UK that began spontaneously drawing about 12 years ago, so she was about 62, in what eventually became the most exquisite illustrations depicting what appear to be non-human entities, ETs, we'll call them. Exquisite. I'm going to show you some pictures right here so you can see. This is just simply amazing. But what's even more amazing than the drawings that you're looking at is the story that accompanies it, of which I still don't know the full story. But there was a part of what Miguel shared with us in this show. Please go back and listen to my interview with Miguel in its entirety. It was absolutely fantastic. Make sure we'll have a link for you to click on. Is Miguel talking about how this woman, out of the blue, began what I would call channeling through her hand, through drawing, and what it culminated into. What it culminated into are the pictures, the images that you're seeing now. But let me pause here for a minute. I want to play a clip for you. It's about 3 minutes where Miguel describes how this all started, and then we'll take it from there. Let's listen to this clip, and I'll be right back.
Let's put it this way, like a lot of people, she was living a very ordinary, average life, just a regular Joe or Jane, and then some stuff happened, and then some other stuff, and some other stuff, and then all of a kind of UFO ET nature. And then she basically, for the first time in her life, was compelled to draw, to find a pencil, find a piece of paper, and start drawing.
Mm-hmm. How old was she? How old was she when this whole thing happened? Do you know?
Okay, so she started doing the drawing 12 years ago.
She's 74 years old. This is not early in life. Wow. Okay.
Right. So this kind of, yeah, I don't know how much of this kind of connects to your thesis about unconscious contact. I mean, it was very conscious, but whether there was other unconscious contact At other times, I think it's likely. I think most experiencers probably have had more unconscious contact than conscious, but that's just an impression that I get. But yeah, she started and could not stop, and then she first of all had to start drawing with her left hand, which is not a regular hand.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, how weird is that? I mean, she just started scribbling, but she'll explain to you why that was done. And that itself is absolutely fascinating. And the illustrations developed. They started off as literally, she said, I was scribbling like a 2-year-old. And then basically it moved on and on and on and on. And then it started to take form. And I think at some point she was able to switch hands and start using her right hand. And I've watched her draw. I was at her place a couple of weeks ago, dropping off her all the originals of the artwork that we'd scanned and used for the book. And basically, she goes into a kind of semi-trance. She slips into a very relaxed, somewhat distant state, and her hand just does its own thing. But she can talk to you as an observer. She's watching what her hand is doing and watching what is being produced, but she doesn't know what it is until, I mean, for some of the drawings, she doesn't even know what it is until she turns it upside down at the end.
So this is really something. When I heard Miguel explain how this whole process started for her, I really thought to myself, there's something here. So she begins by spontaneously picking up the instrument, the pencil, let's just say, with her left hand, her non-dominant hand. In the beginning, Miguel says that her whatever she was scribbling looked like a 2-year-old. Okay, fine. But let's stop there for a minute. What she did was she's right-handed. So she picked up the pen or pencil in her left hand and started that process there. But guys, let's look at this. Let's drill down on this right now. Left side of the body is connected to the right brain. The left hand is, in fact, linked to right brain functioning. And interestingly, it was when this new vocation, what would end up being one as an artist, opened up to her, the entry point was vis-a-vis her left hand. So immediately my thought was, it seems as if by her starting this process with her left hand, that she opened up a corridor, let's say, a door into not only the right brain, but that tool, being the right brain, that has the ability to connect perhaps to otherworldly terrain, another worldly reality, and thus the beings that apparently came through in order for her to then come up with these exquisite, Miguel used the word, and I would say no less than, exquisite drawings that appear to be non-human in origin. But it was interesting. Did you hear what he said? That initially she picked up her the pen with her left hand to start the process, but then eventually she moved over to her right hand, her dominant hand, and that's when she was able to start to refine and develop these images that turned out to be what you're seeing right now. So what may have happened here? Now, again, I cannot say for sure, but it seems to me that this process is quite revealing. If, in fact, our right brain, that more intuitive, creative, and connected to the field side, exists, well, we know the right brain exists, but if that is its chief job, if that is our entry point into, let's just say, down that corridor, into everything outside of the 3D world, and she had this profound experience that it apparently opened up that door for her, wouldn't it make sense that she would start with her left hand that controls or at least is linked to the right brain. And then she moves into her dominant hand, in this case, her right hand, which then signals back to the left brain. Okay, now we need to refine this. Now we need to develop this. Left brain being more, again, analytical, but with specificity. And this is where the images took on just incredible detail. This is just an assumption of mine, but I just found that to be very interesting. Okay, we don't want to stay on that too much, but I wanted to use this as a takeoff point because I think it's revealing about what the capacity of each. But not only that, when they work in tandem, when they shake hands, literally left and right hands, shaking hands, maybe we're allowing left and right brain to also shake hands and work together. Does that make sense to you? Here's a couple little statistics. I think I said earlier that it said that the right brain, we only use it on average about 5% of the time. That leaves 95% of the time with the left brain working overtime. And I just said recently, I think it's time to try to bring this back into a little bit of balance. The other little factoid that I recently looked up was that it seems that only about 10% of the population are left-handed. I'm one of them, by the way. Interestingly, and here's something else that I just kind of knew based on some anecdotes that I was aware of, including a story that my mom told me, that people were once chastised for using their left hand, scolded even, and forced to switch from left to right-handed. Now, in this case, this woman, by the way, Faye, was right-handed or is right-handed. So I would imagine she'd tend to be more left-brained. I don't know that this is a hard and fast rule. It just seems to be the case. But let's talk about people being chastised for using their left hand years ago. This is obviously not the case, at least not in large part today. I found this article by that was published by Time magazine back in 1969. Actually, the article is newer, but it quoted itself from an article back in 1969. I want to read to you. And this has to do with people who were not just ridiculed, but scolded for being left-handed. It says, quote, Southpaws, or let me read the whole quote. It says, as Time explained in 1969, quote, Southpaws, Gallic-handers, Chicky paws, and Scrammies were seen as sinister, literally since the word means left, for centuries. In the Middle Ages, for instance, the left-handed or left-hander lived in danger of being accused of practicing witchcraft, the article explained. The devil himself was considered a southpaw, and he and other evil spirits were always conjured up by left-handed gestures. Now, why did I just read that to you? People being chastised. I wondered where that stemmed from. This is just a little portion of this article, but what is really inferred is that people were demonized for being left-handed, which we know oftentimes back when people that practice so-called witchcraft or any psychic vocation for that matter were in many cases hung. But the bottom line is that it seemed, generally speaking, what was happening is people who are left-handed perhaps were more tuned in to the psychic realm. And maybe certain factions didn't want that to be the case. I'll tell you a quick story about my mom. As I mentioned, I'm a lefty, I'm a southpaw, and I dare say I'm slightly creative. I have a creative tendency. And I remember she said to me, Alexis, you know, it's so funny when the doctors first realized that it looked like you were going to be left-handed. There were certain people that tried to convince me to force you out of being left-handed and make your right hand your dominant hand. And something said to me, leave her be, let her develop as she's supposed to. And Mom, I got to thank you. My blessed mom has been gone for over 20 years, but something made her say, nope, leave it be, let it develop. So that's interesting. So this is one little tidbit I wanted to bring up before we move on to what I think we can work on. So yeah, could it be that if the left hand is linked to the right brain and the right brain is linked to the other world other worlds and other dimensions. Could Faye, in her journey to bringing through, even channeling this sort of otherworldly knowledge through images and using her left left hand initially, was that connected somehow? And then she switches back to the right hand. Again, reinforcing the two have to work together. Two have to work together. I happen to think, now I'm going to go ahead and assume, given the statistics supposedly that only 10% of the population are left-handed, that 90% are right-handed. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that maybe many of you out there are right-handed and you want to use your left hand, not left hand. Well, you you want to be a little bit more right-brained, let's just say, or creative, or whatever it is. Again, finding balance. I'm getting confused. Left brain, left hand, right hand. And because the two are linked with its opposite, it can get a little confusing. But again, it's not just about, how can I use my right brain more? I do think we need to bring it more into balance. But again, how we can have the two shake hands and work together. So I have an idea that I thought would be kind of fun, that I'm trying myself to see if we can, I think, again, it's about balance and bringing things more into harmony. So we become not just part of a person, but a whole person. Left and right hemispheres working together. Here's a little exercise I'd like to try, and then we're going to close it down for today. I'm going to show you. Here's an image right here, and it's laughable to me. I've been working on this a little bit, but as you can see, I've got a long way to go. I am a left-handed individual. I tend to be, I guess you could say, a bit more right-brained, assuming that the creative vocation is attached to that right brain. But I could probably still use some help in balancing left and right. So I said, well, if I were to start actively and proactively using my non-dominant hand, starting with writing my name, and this is what you're seeing right now. And I'm chuckling because I have to imagine that Faye, the artist who ended up becoming this exquisite artist, started out picking up her non-dominant hand, and she said she the chicken scratch looked like a 2-year-old. Well, guess what this looks like, right? There's my name right there and written with my right hand. But what if we were to do that on a regular basis? Start acclimating ourselves to using our non-dominant hand. Now, of course, there are ambidextrous people out there. I didn't check the statistics on what percentage of the population. I would imagine it is very small, certainly smaller than 10%. I'm going to check that out, and if I find it, maybe I'll put it in the comments below. But by practicing using our non-dominant hand, and not just in writing, in other things. Think of the things that you do with your dominant hand all the time. Holding your fork. That would be another one when you're eating. Things that you only use that dominant hand for. Now, there's some things, interestingly, that I can use both hands with pretty much equal. But take the things that are most awkward, and I would dare say writing and eating, and practice every day for a few minutes using that non-dominant hand, particularly for those of you who are right-handed and want to work on opening up the right brain. What you would want to do is start using your left hand as much as possible, pure and simple. But that is not to preclude the people like me who are left-handed. Again, two things that we're trying to achieve here. One, I would say first and foremost, is to try to take that right brain out of the 5 percentile and bring it closer to the left brain of 95%. I don't know if we'll ever, not ever, but I don't know that we can get immediately close to 50-50, but certainly we need to be using right brain more. So if you are right-handed, start using that left hand more, starting with just writing your name every day. Write it a couple of times, 3 times. Try that every day and see if you can just get more comfortable with it. And then monitor, are you starting to get more intuitive hits, as an example? But most importantly, and I'm probably sounding like a broken record, what we want to do is synthesize both hemispheres of the brain so they're used in tandem. And we, as a result, become more whole, less in conflict, less indecisive, more whole. There you go. I think I got my point across there. I'll leave that alone. Fascinating again, getting back to what happened to Faye Vale and how this whole enigma, I guess you could call it, but a beautiful one, developed for her. Very, very interesting. Okay, there you go. There you have it, folks. Quick announcements. Actually, before I get to announcements, I got to give a couple of shout outs. I just, I am always, always, always so filled with gratitude for the people that follow Higher Journeys, not just for me, not at all, but first of all, it feels good to have company, doesn't it? It feels good to share common interests, the things that we love so dearly, the things that we are trying to achieve, including the things that we just talked about today. And there are people that I know follow the YouTube channel religiously, and quite a few of you out there, but I just wanted to shout out this time to JN Peace. I love hearing from you. And JN is always so proactive in our comments section. So I want to send a shout out to JN Peace. Also to Sage Grace. Sage, you're lovely, my dear. Sage has reached out to me on email several times, and she's always just a wonderful, wonderful spirit. I can feel it across the miles, Sage, wherever you are. I'm not sure where you are, but just want to shout out to you. And Curtis Hill. I hear from Curtis so often. Again, lovely individual. Thank you so much, you guys. There are more of you out there, and I'm going to find you, and I'll give you a shout out. Just want to let you know I'm paying attention, and I do appreciate it. So thanks, guys. Listen, before we head out, let me just remind you, we're about a month away from Contact in the Desert, and yours truly will be there as one of the hosts. So excited. One of the hosts again this year. Let me see if I can remember who I have been assigned to introduce. I believe there are about 6 people I'll be introducing, and I think I'm also going to be hosting a panel. We have to get clear on that pretty quick. But I will be introducing Mary Rodwell, who is coming over from Australia. In fact, she'll be here in a couple of short weeks because she's going to be doing a couple more events before she gets to Contact in the Desert. But I will be introducing her. I will be introducing Graham Hancock. Really excited about that. I have never met Graham before, but I'm certainly familiar with his work. So I'm looking forward to introducing his talk. Let's see, who else? David Childress from Ancient Aliens. I'll be introducing him. Yvonne Smith from Zero, who I know quite well. Yvonne works, in speaking of the experiencer aspect of this whole phenomenon of the ET UFO phenomenon. She is just, to me, second to none in terms of working with experiencers, has been for so long. I will be introducing her, and I know she'll be doing some great talks on the experiential aspect of all of this. Let's see, who else do I have? Oh, there are a couple more, but I can't. Oh, I'm introducing Whitley Strieber. I got to let Whitley know because we were talking about that. He was like, I hope you get to introduce me. Well, guess what? I will be. Anyway, it's going to be all that. Guys, if you haven't gone to Contact in the Desert before, check it out. It's just an exquisite event, and it's so much fun. We're talking about heavy stuff. Yes, it's true, but we're having a good time as well. And all of us sort of in a mode of self-discovery in all of the discussions, both whether they be in big lectures or in intimate groups. It's just a wonderful event. So listen, go to contactinthedesert.com to learn more, but hurry up because we're only about 30 days away. Okay? All right, I'm going to leave it there. Listen, if you liked what you heard, subscribe, would you? I would really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, all these little laundry list of things to do these days. My God, but so be it. All of which I would be greatly appreciative. So that's it for now, folks. I will talk to you soon. Go practice writing with that non-dominant hand. And by all means, let me know what you come up with. Okie dokie. All right. We'll talk to you real soon. Always enjoy spending this time with you. Take care.